Hello, this is Chris with the Long Rigging Solutions. Once the floor is marked, the next step is for the ground rigger to connect the hardware that will be needed for each hoist point. We call that building the steel because the components are steel. This point is a 1-ton motor with a 5-basket and a 20-foot stinger or downtail. To build this point, we have a blue, which is a 20, and a red, which is 5, and 2 5/8 shackles. Hold one shackle so that the threaded ear is toward you. That will be the basket shackle. Place one end of the 5-foot piece, which will become the basket, and then the other shackle will be the working shackle or connection shackle. It goes next by the threaded ear of the basket shackle. Place the 20-foot blue piece so that the pin goes through the eye and then screws into the threads of the basket shackle. Then tie a bowline knot using the rigging rope through the basket shackle between the threaded side of the basket shackle and the eye of the basket steel, that red 5-foot piece. The reason this needs to be so precise is that when the assembly is raised into the air, you want as few loose pieces and moving parts as possible. The basket needs to be present to the uprigger in the order that allows the connection to be completed as smoothly as possible. The uprigger will pull it up, lay the 5-foot on some burlap around the beam and use that working or connection shackle to make the connection between the 5-foot piece and the basket shackle. The bell of the working shackle is already in place, so the pin needs to be taken out, placed through the other end of the 5-foot piece, and then reinserted so it's finger tight. The size of the loop in the bowline will depend on what the uprigger needs at that location to most safely make the connection. As a general rule, the loop of the bowline should be half the length of the basket cable. However, there are numerous circumstances that might cause the uprigger to ask for a different size, either shorter or longer. Say they ask for a 3-foot bowline. That means that the length of the loop of the bowline where there's weight on it will be about 3 feet from the knot to the end of the loop as it goes through the basket shackle. Next, stand up and lift the point and recheck to ensure everything is in the correct place. If it is, take some burlap and drape it through the bowline, covering the basket shackle, and ask the uprigger to take some tension on the rope so that everything stays oriented properly as you check the wire rope on the floor and make sure you are not tangled up in it. The final step is to clip the hook of the chain from the hoist motor to the bottom eye of the downtail. Once everything is assembled, the downrigger will communicate to the uprigger to let them know it's ready to go. There are several ways to do that depending on the venue and even what else is happening around you. Some venues have 2-way radios. Sometimes the downrigger will yell, "Fish on!" Or if there are multiple ropes, they might say, "Fish on," and the color of the rope. Some places where they can't hear you yell, you might shake the rope vigorously or pose with the rope held horizontally in front of you and the basket held ready where they can see it. As it is going out, you must watch closely to ensure that everything is in the proper order, nothing is side-loaded, the steel is straight, no shackles are fouled, the hook is clean in the eye of the cable or the bottom of the bridle, and nothing is snagged on anything. Bad news when it gets 50 foot up and that extra 5-footer you didn't use comes dropping out of the sky. You also want to keep other workers away from that area so that no one is walking under the upriggers while they are assembling the point. And that's a 1-ton dead hang with a 5-basket and a 20-foot stinger or downtail. Next, let's look at another 1-ton dead hang with a different type of basket. This one will have a 20-foot downtail and a 15-foot split basket, so that the 20-foot downtail is easy, just a single blue and 20-foot piece of steel. The split basket is the fun part. For a 15 split, you need both a 5-foot and a 10-foot on the basket shackle. Take the pin out of the 5/8 shackle and hold it with the threaded ear towards yourself. Using the 5/8 inch shackle, you're going to take it and you're going to put on the 10 first and then the 5. Once you've got those on, you're going to take your 20 and you're going to put it on the pin of the 5/8 inch shackle. Then take a 5/8 shackle and put it on the loose end of the 5-foot piece of steel to be the working or connection shackle. You must make certain that the bell is through the eye of the 5 and that your pin is the free floating end. You tie the rope into the eye of the 5-foot, making sure to leave the shackle floating free with no load on it. We will tie a 2-foot bowline unless we are told otherwise, and because it's a split basket, I'll slide the loose end of the 10-foot through the bowline's loop so the uprigger can grab it easily. Add the burlap, double check everything, and then let the uprigger know it's ready for them to pull. When it gets up to the rigging beam or structural steel, the uprigger will place the burlap, then toss the loose end of the 10-footer around the beam, take the pin from the working or connection shackle, and connect the loose end of the 10 to the 5. Because that shackle is already in place, only the pin comes loose. If you tie the rope into that working end or connection shackle, you will undoubtedly get yelled at because it will likely need to be sent back to the floor to be fixed and then pulled again. Let's do one with some deck chain. This is a 1/2-ton motor with a 10 down tail or stinger going to a bridal where one leg is a 10-footer with 3 links and a 10-foot basket, and the other leg is a 15-foot with a 5 basket. When I'm building, I like to start at the bottom and work my way up. Having repeated patterns means it's less likely you'll make a mistake. I've got my 10 down tail, and I know the first 2 components of each leg are 10, so I'm going to go ahead and build the apex of the bridle. Whenever you are building the apex of the bridle, always make sure that both legs of the bridle are in the bell of the shackle and that your down tail or stinger is on the pin of the apex shackle. In this case, it makes a Y shape and all 3 pieces of steel are 10 foot long. Next, I'll add the deck chain. I will try to make certain that the side with the tag is the non-working end of the chain, as that keeps the tag from getting torn up quite so quickly. I take a 5/8 shackle and put the bell end through the non-tagged end of the deck chain and connect to the 10-footer on the side. Pin going down into the 10-footer. We always want to have the pins going down whenever possible. Occasionally there is a reason to deviate, but otherwise we stick with pin down. We need 3 working lengths of deck chain, so count 1, 2, 3. The third length is the length that you want to put the next shackle into and let the rest of the links hang down. You never want to capture the non-working links. Let them dangle out of the way. Always put your smaller hardware, such as a deck chain, as close to the basket as possible. That way, if there is a problem once in the air, it gives the upriggers a better chance to fix it. If your deck chain was all the way down at the apex, they could never reach it, but when it's right next to the basket, they often can. The next item on this side is a 10-foot basket, which is built just like a 5-foot basket, but you do it with a 10-foot piece of steel. So open up a shackle, put the 10-footer for the basket on the bell, then a shackle that will become the working or connection shackle to complete the basket, making sure that the connection shackle is on the threaded side of the bell. And finally, the third length of the deck chain will go on the pin of the basket shackle. Take your time and double check your work. As before, you'll tie a bowline that is half the size of the basket into the shackle between the 10-foot piece of steel and the pin of unthreaded side of the basket shackle bell. Since this is a 10-foot basket, we want a 5-foot bowline. Once it is all tied, lay it out, check one more time that it's all built correctly, and we will go up so the uprigger can safely finish the point. Because it's a 10-footer with a massive bowline, I tuck my burlap through the eye of the 10-footer and then set that off to the side. That half of the bridle is done. The other half is a 15 with a 5-foot basket. I've already got 10-foot attached. To make this a 15 leg, I attach a 5 to it. Once again, I make sure that my bell goes through the 5 and the pin goes through the 10, so my pin is downhill in the bridle leg. I've got my 15-foot built, and now I need to build a 5-foot basket, which is just like the 10 basket we just did. Take a shackle, open it up, put a 5-footer on it, put the working end or connection shackle on it, make sure the connection shackle is on the threaded side of the bell, and then put the leg from the bridle on the pin. When you tie your bowline, make sure that you tie it so it goes pin, knot, 5, shackle, and the leg of the bridle is on the pin. I'm going to do about a 2.5-foot bowline for this, and to keep things consistent, tuck the burlap through the eye. So everything is assembled. Once more, I'm going to look over my entire assembly and ensure that it's all correct. So I've got my 10 downtail from the apex. One side of the bridle is a 15 with a 5 basket, and the other side is a 10 with 3 working links and a 10 basket. At this point in time, I would yell upstairs to my riggers that the point is theirs. There are 2 teams of upriggers involved with this because it's a bridle, so typically we take one side out so it's got tension. I'd yell stop. Then the other team of upriggers would take the other side out so it has tension. I'd stop then, and then they would take it out all together. Once they have made their connections, the downrigger double checks that the point lands where it's supposed to be, and if not, adjustments are made to fix that. That is how you build a bridle. It is very important when you're building your steel that you tie your bowline in the right place. The correct configuration is pin, rope, steel, shackle, and then of course you've got your downtail coming out of it from the pin of the basket shackle. Everything arriving to the uprigger is correct configuration is key to maintaining a quick and safe connection. If you tie in the wrong place or put the various components in the wrong order, it causes all kinds of problems ranging from having to send it back to the floor to, at best, having to work in an awkward position and possibly creating an unsafe condition. So it goes, pin, rope, steel, shackle. Another thing to keep in mind as it's going past you, make sure that the steel and your shackle are free. Sometimes your shackle can get pinned by your downtail, which once again is a really bad situation. So you want to make sure that your steel and your shackle are free and that you tie it pin, rope, steel, shackle, and of course you've got your downtail going straight down. Another important thing is to watch as your steel is going up, is to make sure that everything is hanging neatly. There is a piece of steel coming down with a bell on the upside and the next piece of the pin of that shackle. When you're connecting hardware on the ground, there may be a lot sitting there, and someone can kick it or it gets picked up in an odd way. If you see this happen, you might be able to shake it a bit to pop it back into alignment. But if it's out of reach, or if you can't safely shake it out, yell stop, bring it back down and correct it. It's much better to stop mid-pull than to get it all the way up and have to send it all the way back down, or you have someone jerk the assembly so hard that someone gets pulled off the beam overhead. Bell up, pin down, nothing fouled. The last thing is to make sure that your hook is properly connected. If the hook gets fouled, it might take weight and stay in place for a while, but it may also pop out of the eye and fall to the ground, or it may seat itself with a bounce that you can feel through the entire structure. Make sure the hook is seated properly in the thimble as it goes by. In some venues, you might also mouse the spring-loaded gate of the hook with a piece of gaff tape to keep it from catching on those things. There are other styles of hooks that automatically lock, but this is not one of them. Building steel for 2-ton points uses exactly the same configurations and procedures as for 1-ton points. The difference is that they will be built out of 1/2-inch wire rope instead of 3/8 wire rope. And all of the shackles should be 3/4-inch shackles, with the working load limit on a 5/8 shackle is more than 2 tons. We choose to use 3/4 shackles only. Logistically, this is safer due to the fact that there are some instances where 5/8 shackles are not acceptable. Please remember that DeLong Rigging Solutions one-shot training videos are meant as general information. Every system is different, every venue has different procedures, and even the same show in different places have different needs. All statements made make certain assumptions about systems and venue similarities. Nothing can replace on-site training with a qualified individual. If ever you have a question or concern about rigging, do not hesitate to reach out to us or another qualified vendor in your area.